All right, this video is going to be for skill 7 of the Algebra 1, Unit 1. So again, we're dealing with a lot of material that's a review. And so I just want to make sure to provide you guys with a lot of resources to help you kind of get back into the swing of doing some of this stuff. So what you see on the screen now is just a little help for you guys with square roots and perfect squares. So each row here represents a one perfect square that it'd be helpful for you to at least familiarize yourself with, especially these numbers right here, and recognizing what numbers are perfect squares. And so we should talk real quick about what that means to say something is a perfect square. Let me add another page here. So when we talk about this type of symbol, like an exponent, what that means, this 2 tells us to do 7 times itself twice. So 7 times 7, 1 7, 2 sevens. And so the answer in this case is 49. So we could have other examples of this. We could take it beyond 2. We could have something like 3 to the 4th. And that would tell me that I need to do 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And so do 3 times itself 4 times. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times another 3 is 81. And so just knowing, first of all, that when we look at a number that has exponents, we call this number right here, we call it the base, and we call this number right here the power, or the exponent. So that would be some important information for you to know here. Now, draw a new drawing here. There are some unique cases that you need to be aware of when we're talking about exponents. So, and those are going to be powers of 0 and powers of 1, and then what 1 to a power is. So we'll talk about each of these 3 examples. So the first kind of special example that you need to know is that anytime you have any number raised to the 0 power, the answer is automatically 1. I'm sorry guys. So that means that if I had 47 to the 0 power, the answer would still be 1. Doesn't matter what number I have. If you have a power of 0, the answer is going to be 1. Now, when we're dealing with the power of 1, that tells me I'm multiplying this number times itself 1 time, which means the answer is that number. So any number to the power of 1 is that number. So again, if I had like 67 to the first power, the answer is 67. So 0 powers go to 1, powers of 1 go to that number, and then 1 to any power, and I'm not going to explain this by writing this entire thing out, but we know that anytime I multiply 1 times 1, and I keep going 24 times, I'm still only going to have 1. So 1 to any power is always going to be 1. And the same is true of 0. 0 to any power is 0, because 0 times itself is still 0. So those are kind of some special cases that you need to know. Now in the unit, I'm going to jump back over to our little help page. In the unit, you're going to be answering questions about powers, and they're mostly going to be squares, zeros, or ones. And so what you need to do, and I would just use this to help you, is knowing, for instance, that 6 squared is 36 because 6 times 6 is 36. Or the square root of 64 is 8 because 8 times 8 equals 64. So we should talk real quick about square root. In the same way that 8 squared tells me to multiply 8 times 8, and that makes 64, the square root of 64 tells me to ask the question, what times itself? What number times itself equals 64? That's what this means. And so we know the answer is 8. But I'm going to also jump over to a calculator. All right, we were going to look at so I wanted to look at how to do these types of problems in the calculator, and I'm going to be using the Desmos calculator, desmos.com, and we're going to use the scientific calculator. There is also a graphing calculator for this, and I will be posting that link in the video description. I'd highly recommend using this while you're doing your math work. It's just a little bit more, a little bit easier to navigate, especially with the graphing. So I wanted to just show you real quick the buttons for squared and square root. And so you can see we have, oops, sorry about that. We have a button for squared and square root right here. And then we have our number entry right here, which you can also use your keyboard. And I'll kind of talk about how to do that as well. So on here, I'm going to be doing 8 squared. I just did 8 and then the A with the 2 above it. And that's how I get 8 squared. Now I can also type that in by doing on my keyboard 8 and then hitting this little caret, which is on your keyboard is on the number 6. It's what we call a little caret, and that will get you into where you can type exponents like you see on the screen. And then of course we have square roots. So if I'm going to do the opposite, square root of 49, let's say, the answer would be 7. So you can see these two buttons right here are going to be what we use for squared and square root. And then these buttons on the next part are used when you're doing other roots besides squared. So just so you can see that done, that would be if we did 4 raised to the 5th power, right? And so that would be 4 times itself 5 times. And just so you can see, oops, let's go back. Times 4 gives us 1024. So you can see here that these both yield the same answer, 4 to the 5th, and then 4 times itself 5 times. So that's where those are going to come from. And if you want to type square root on your keyboard, you can just type SQRT and it'll instantly change into a square root symbol. And you can put any number in there that you want to find the square root. So we could do 36, and that gets us 6. So that's how you will do these. You can do these on the calculator, and that should kind of give you everything you need to do skill 7.